The What to Read Next podcast helps you build a TBR of future favorite books. In each episode, Lori and Maine interviews authors and book influencers to recommend books they loved for you to pick up today. If you're an avid reader, always looking for your next great read, then the show's for you. Hey, Anita, welcome to What to Read Next podcast.
Laura, thank you so much for having me. I'm just thrilled to be here.
I'm so excited to chat with you. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born and raised in Sydney, Australia, and my parents were both Holocaust survivors, which led me, after writing about 17 books of commercial women's fiction under my my married name, which is Anita Hughes, to want to really write my mother's story. And so I took my maiden name, Anita Abriel, and wrote The Light After the War, which became an international bestseller and was really, really dear to my heart because it's my mother's, who's not alive, story of her survival, escape from World War II, and survival afterwards. And then after that, I just really got hooked by the historical bug. Mm-hmm. So I wrote Lana's War, which was set on the French Riviera during World War II and had some really fascinating facts that I didn't know. And then my latest is The Girl After the War, which is set in Rome and Florence and Tuscany during World War II.
So you have explored different parts of the war in different areas. So I read actually some of your commercial fiction, actually. Oh, I did read quite a few of your books. So I'm like, oh, putting two and two together. Let's chat about A Girl During the War. What is the elevator pitch?
The premise is that Marina Tozzi, she lives in Rome with her father. Her mother died years ago, and he owns an art gallery, and she works there too. She loves art, especially Renaissance art, and she hopes to take over the gallery one day. And she's also studying art at university. And she comes home from the market, and her father has been shot and killed for harboring a Jewish artist. And she didn't know that he was doing that. You know, he was operating one of the safe houses that were in Rome at the time. And so, afraid for her safety there, she goes and stays with a family friend who's was a real life person, Bernard Berenson, a very, very famous, the most famous art collector of his day, in his Villa Aitati, which is now owned by Harvard, outside of Florence.
So what was your research process? So like, how do you identify this specific part of the war? Because I feel like Italy is something unexplored in historical fiction, and then like, looking at the art world, Yeah,
it's very much one of those rabbit holes. I like, one answer could be I have no idea. And the other answer is I don't know what I was looking at, but I discovered that only one bridge in Florence survived World War II. There were 5 bridges, and one of them, the Ponte Vecchio, is the only one survived. And I've been to Florence many, many years ago and remember the bridges very well. And the reason for that was that the German consul at the time, a guy named Gerard Wolff, even though he was the German consul, he was not a supporter of the Nazis, and he forbade, when the Allies were winning, the Nazis started blowing up all the bridges and everything in order to slow the Allies down from coming in and taking back the city. And so he ordered that the Ponte Vecchio keep standing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And from there, I went to, that he was friends with Bernard Berenson and another character, Ludwig, who runs an art institute. So there were Germans there who were not fans of Hitler and the Nazis, but were there because they loved Renaissance art, because they loved art.
I love this. Yeah, I think it's fascinating to look at history, like that snapshot of history, and try to define like, like cultural, also the war and like the expectations and what happens. And so then seeing it, creating this world where the reader can learn something from it.
Well, I mean, I kept learning what's crazy too. Another character who plays a huge part in the book is Bernard Berenson's, you know, part. He was married, but he was with this other woman for 20 or 30 years, Belle de la Costa Green, who was JP Morgan's personal librarian,
Mhm.
which, that book came out last year, The Personal Librarian,
Yeah.
after I had written all this. And so all of a sudden, people knew who Belle de la Costa Green was. I never knew, never heard of her before. And here she hops over from JP Morgan over to World War II.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Connecting the
Yeah,
dots.
yeah, yeah. A very big snake game of snakes and ladders.
So, are you looking at to do more World War II fiction? And if so, what kind of like what kind of slice of the war are you looking at?
My next book that comes out next year will actually be historical fiction, but in a little bit of a different era.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
because the war, eventually it's very, you can't write a really happy book about the war.
Mhm.
Um, and I just felt for now, I've kind of said all I want to say about it, and I will probably return to it because there's a million stories. But yeah, you'll see next year. We'll be back next year.
We'll be back next year. But yay. Oh my gosh. I think yeah, that is true. Like it's really hard to write something happier when there's like a place when we're in a place of high stress and high demand of our attention and like we're not sure like your basic needs are not being met.
I mean, a lot of what all of these three books to me were about was young women's resilience during that time and
Yeah.
how they did all fall in love. My mother fell in love, Lana fell in love, and Marina fell, greatly in love in this book. And they often didn't work out because too many obstacles. So
Yeah.
life continued in every way, but so there are many, many stories, but there's many, many stories about every decade.
Yes, there is. So what are you currently reading?
Oh my gosh. I'm a huge reader. I just finished The Ark,
Yeah.
which is, gosh, you'll have to tell me who wrote it because,
I'll put it in the show notes, so don't worry about it.
which was really fantastic. Yeah, really, really well done. I was really impressed. I read 2 or 3 books a week. I just started The Maid, which looks like it's going to be everything that it's supposed to be. Really,
Yeah.
really well done to start. So yeah, I'm a huge reader.
I love this. And do you have any books you recommend our listeners to pick up?
Well, I mean, those two definitely. And I also read The Ballerinas,
Yeah.
which was tremendous. And there's a lot of really great stuff out there
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is. So tell us where we can find you online.
So AnitaAbriel.com is my website for the historical fiction, and Anita Hughes Books is my website for the contemporary fiction. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter.
I love this. Well, thank you, Anita, for being on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to share with friends, subscribe, rate, and review the show. This is the easiest way to support this podcast. For a list of books mentioned and other romance recommendations, please visit whattoreadnextblog.com. The What to Read Next podcast is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Please visit frolic.media/podcast to discover new shows to tune in. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.